On this episode of Drinks Around the Table, I sit down with board game designer Ryan Collins. We discuss the journey of game making, mechanics, themes, playtesting, and all the time that went into building his recent labor of love, Siege Command. Hope you enjoy. All right, so the question that's been my kickoff question this season, mostly from it's very interesting to me to see where somebody's artistic first love, what that seed grew into based on what you do now creatively. So what was your first artistic love? Like what was your, like for me it was books and comic books.
Artistic love, first one. Probably H.R. Geiger.
Okay.
I don't know how to say it. I just remember like seeing his artwork and finding it so incredibly thought-provoking and imaginative, and just kind of it, even without like having seen places where it's been heavily utilized, like the Alien franchise.
Sure.
It still like creates these worlds in your head when you look at his paintings, and that was very, very early on.
That'd be mind-blowing depending on how young you were.
Actually, no, Stephen Gamble.
Nice
Yeah.
pull. Yeah.
Yeah, the old Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Stories, yeah.
That artwork actually was the first to just really pop and stand out to me, because like that would set the basis for the stories that I was going to start reading, and then I was too young to be reading those stories, so you know, nightmares ensue.
Sure. Oh, I mean, some of his art to this day sticks with me. From Scary Stories, like particularly the girl that's got the
Fighters.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That was one thing they did really well with that movie they made, where like the movie was fine, I thought, but the effects of like bringing those pictures to life, they did a really good job.
Nice. I haven't seen it.
All right, so where?
'Tis the season.
Yeah, this is a good time for it, and I mean it's all right. Like I'm not, don't go in thinking Aaron said this was dope. It's fine, but
It's fine.
as a fan of the source material, probably be at least intrigued to be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. All right, so your primary creative outlet these days, is it fair to say that it's board game creating, making, building?
Yeah, I would say that is accurate. Game design is my primary creative outlet at the moment.
Okay, what's your earliest board game memory?
Mousetrap.
Nice.
Either Mousetrap or there's a game called The Great Escape.
Nice.
I can't remember if like each player had one or if it was just a single one for the board, but there's like a little silly putty like person you would mold or something. I can't remember. And then just like similar a la Mousetrap, there are like certain like traps or contraptions around the board that would like smash it or deform it or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I remember having Travel Trouble. That was fun because we did a lot of road trips when I was growing up. So just like magnetic pieces, and the Trouble had like a little popper in the middle that was the dice.
Right.
And of course, another thing being exposed to far too young, Monopoly. That ruined board games for me for a very, very long time.
Because of which aspect, like what angle messed? Because I know people that don't play it because of the family battle that ensued, and I know people that just it was so mind-numbingly boring to them.
Well, it's intended to be both of those things. Like the woman who initially designed it as like a satire on capitalism,
Sure.
and just kind of like be like, yeah, it sucks because that's how capitalism works. So it was never intended to be a good, fun game. But yeah, all of those things, and the fact that like we would sit around for 4+ hours, and as like a 10-year-old,
Yeah,
that's excruciating.
it's too much.
Like, when does it get fun soon?
Right.
Or
Yeah. Let's talk about the jail thing again. What can I go to jail? Do you like we break out of jail? Yeah. No, I get it. I similarly, and I mean I can count on one hand how many games of Monopoly I've finished in my life. It usually ends 4 hours is rarely do I make it that long. Like,
Yeah.
or does the game make it that long? Usually everybody's pretty done.
Mhm.
Even with these new thematic change, where it's Star Wars Monopoly or Zelda Monopoly, it's still Monopoly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no stranger to 4+ hour board games. Like, I'll happily sit down for 8 hours and play Twilight Imperium and enjoy every minute of it.
Right. See, what's funny about that one is I also know friendships that got ruined over Twilight Imperium. But everybody was having fun up until the ruining of friendships.
Yeah, that's a feature though, not a flaw.
Right. Okay. So, has that changed at all for you as you've gotten old? So for me, I used to love like the more number crunchy, detailed, thick, like how to play books it came with, the better. And if it took all weekend, awesome. I have changed on that front since. I have much more. I'd rather play 4 or 5 games in the course of an evening than spend an evening playing one game. Where do you land preference wise?
It depends on how long it's been since I've played a longer game.
Okay.
So like currently, I guess back like when I lived in Austin, I had like a really good core board game group, and we would play games twice a week, and we would get a good mix of the longer, crunchier games, and then like other evenings, depending on the company, like if we had other like guests and like non-gamer friends, we would play a lot of like social party games, or whenever I was going like Monday nights, even here in Kansas City, going to a board game night pretty regularly when I first moved here. There was a good mixture of the two. Lately I haven't been getting a lot of that. It's mostly just been me and my wife playing games. So we'll sit down and play a game, and a lot of games aren't optimized for 2 players.
Right.
So if I get multiple people together, right now I'm in the mindset of I want to play a not necessarily a big crunchy 8-hour game, but like, a good 3 to 4 hour something, maybe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like a couple of 2-hour games. But if I've got like a bunch of neighbors over or something, I'll pull out, Cards Against Humanity or Telestrations or some good party games.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the crowd in the evening.
That's valid. Cards Against Humanity, I don't dig it, and I know I'm on an island because most everybody I know does. For me, it so quickly devolves into the same answer wins every time. Like it always gets to the whatever the dumbest, punniest, dirtiest thing is. It's not like I'm a prude or anything. It's just like I get that that's gonna win. So if I can't play, then I can't. Yeah, I can't strategize. I get a little disinterested in a game.
So we were also encountering that. So we threw in a curveball of letting the dogs play, or having like a ghost player or something. So just like you deal in somebody else, or just every time you just draw 2 random cards or 1 random card, however many the question needs, and you just put one in there. Nobody claims it. That point goes to the dog.
Nice.
And
right.
It's in that curveball, because it's like, okay, well, that's the most random one happened to be the funniest.
That's okay. That's workarounds. That's good to know. All right. Well, let's get more. Okay. So what What was your first published game?
Siege Command.
Is it that one? Okay.
Yeah, that's
Which is dope.
currently my only published game, but
Okay.
that will be changing in the near-ish future.
Gotcha. Okay. How did you approach making it? Like, the build of a game, did you come at it thematically first? Did you come at it mechanically first? Or was it a blend?
That is often the question a lot of game designers start with, or aspiring game designers start with. And honestly, it comes down to just like there is no right answer.
Sure.
A good theme can drive good solid mechanics, or especially can drive unique combinations of mechanics. Specifically with Siege Command, I started with a mechanical theme. So I wanted, I was inspired by League of Legends initially, and other MOBA genre games, and I just started by just putting it all into a spreadsheet and just envisioning what that would look like as a board game, just to see if I could. And then at that point, it was in a spreadsheet. It was a full potential game design that nobody would want to play.
Right.
Because it was all just fiddly, crunchy, move things around the board, and then do a thing, and then spend 20 more minutes fiddling, moving things around the board.
Yeah.
So
Which there's a place for those games. Like, I know people that would have dug that, but
yeah. That's actually because of where it came from. I feel like wargamers have found some good interest in it because it takes out that fiddliness of it, and it still is a two-player war game on
Right.
a condensed strategic battlefield. But then the actual the lore and the world and the theme that is explored in the game and other stuff that I'm doing within that world, that didn't come until later. It was actually, I had the game, I was just using generic stolen fantasy artwork from other games just to have something that looked nice.
right.
And I was in the process of creating a sell sheet to look for publishers, and I decided I want to get some thematic artwork that kind of delivers what I want to do, and looked around and found an artist that I really liked, commissioned a few pieces, and then based on some of his existing artwork, it inspired something in me that kind of sparked this whole world, and then I had him kind of expand on that. And then once I started working with Rob Nix, who did the game and the comic, it just exploded into the theme that is now being delivered with it.
All right, so from that first spreadsheet to what sits on your shelf there, what was the time frame?
8 years?
8 years. Wow. Okay.
Hold on. No. Yeah, because so I started in 2014 is when I started messing around with the idea. Kickstarter was funded September 21, and then copies showed up 2.5 years after that because everything got knocked out of whack with
Sure.
pandemic.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, your timing was a little
Yeah.
too bad.
Yeah.
Well, still, and how much of that mean? So, for your next game, how much of that 8 years pandemic stuff aside, were you? Because if this is your first game, how much were you having to teach yourself and learn the things you didn't know about building a game?
Honestly, I was just making it up as I went along. Until I had actually, let's say the first half of designing the game was a very long, drawn-out process of iterating and playtesting until I got to something that was somewhat balanced and fun. And throughout all of that, I was just kind of winging it. And it wasn't until I moved to Kansas City and like the game had been on the shelf for a little while, I took it off and started exploring it again. Then I started actually talking to other game designers, meeting up at game design events, the Kansas City Game Design Group, and like reading about ludology and other game design theory and everything, and just kind of seeing how I could test some of the stuff that I'd done against some theory. And yeah, it's been the whole thing has been a growing experience, and I'm much better for it now because I can't stop designing games now.
Right.
Until like the Kickstarter, until Siege Command was on Kickstarter, I had not even attempted designing anything else because it was just focusing on Siege Command and the expansions. And there's still 2 more expansions I'm working on right now. So,
wow.
So in addition to those, several other games. Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, no, it actually does sound fun. How did like so with mechanics of a game? And I mean, I've now heard you talk to another game designer, and I've talked to game designers, and like there's a shorthand of understood mechanics that even as an avid gamer myself, I'm not privy to that shorthand. Like listening to you guys talk, it's like I know what you're talking about. I don't understand the context, but cool. How does that feel? So I mean, because like you see a lot of games where the mechanics are similar, right? Like, and I mean, how does that? Because is it like for my world where it's like, okay, I can look at this story and I can see, it's part this, part that, part this, even if it's not intended to be, like the same parts are being used and I get it and the flow is different and that's cool. How does that translate to games? Like, how did you know with Siege Command? Let me hone in on my point here. How did you know on Siege Command that the mechanics, you weren't stepping on another game's toes too much? Or is that even a factor? Like, does that even matter?
In extremely rare cases, no. Honestly, no. If you are truly, as a game designer, truly creating your own vision and not blatantly ripping something off, it is an original creation. You can't copyright mechanics. You can't even copyright like combination of X mechanics. When it comes down to it, if the rule book is the same and like any conditional rules are the same, then they can potentially bring it to court and it'll probably still get shot down. Like there are like I've got 2 games on my shelf right now. Let me find them. Yeah. These 2 games are exactly the same.
Okay.
They're the exact same game.
Right. Okay.
GTA and The King is Dead. And different publishers, different designers, both very successful publishers, Z-Man Games and Osprey Games. Yeah, they're the exact same game, but there was no lawsuit, nothing. So stepping on another designer's toes, sure, it might like kind of damage a little bit of clout.
Yeah.
But I mean, when it comes down to it, like if somebody made something that was based on Siege Command, I would be flattered.
Yeah.
It's like I inspired them to do something like that.
Right. Okay, so yeah, that's the most succinct way I could have put it was copyright mechanic. You can't copyright mechanics because that's what, like, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like. There are times where I'll have like a short story idea, right, and it comes so fully formed that I have to research to make sure I'm not remembering something else I've read. And so as someone that has played a ton of games, there's not a chance in hell that I wouldn't feel that way with a mechanic, where if I thought of a mechanic, I wouldn't be like, oh, this is already out there. But you're saying it doesn't really matter as long as you take it from there and build your own thing.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
All right, so what... Sorry,
most board games, I think, especially most modern hobby games, borrow from each other a lot.
Yeah.
Not even just that they're like standardized mechanics, but like some people will explicitly take like a certain type of dice drafting thing and then just kind of add a little twist on it. Like I've straight up I have a custom set of dice that I built. Right now I'm calling it Kinterlands dice because it's the dice that the people in my world of Kinterlands,
Sure.
it's dice that they play with. I think
I played a handful of times actually. Yeah.
And with those dice, I've got like 6 or 7 games at the moment. So whenever I kickstart it, it's going to be just this custom set of dice in a pouch and a bunch of games you can play. A few of those are like just legit like existing games that I've adapted to be played with these dice. So it's a different game, a different experience.
Right.
But yeah, and like because I have adapted it and I have changed it, I've more been inspired by that rather than stealing it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, that actually makes me happy that it's not as legality isn't a driving factor so much in making games, because that just seems like it'd be nightmarish trying to, for one, become obsessed with protecting your own, but 2, having to worry about somebody suing you for, that's my mechanic, you used it, and it's like, yeah, that just seems like a bad rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, I think the only there's actually a very public lawsuit right now. I haven't checked in on it in a while, since Gen Con actually, that is kind of like the one case in which this can happen, where, you know, somebody starts working on something at one studio and then leaves, and then the rights still belong to that studio, but then they publish another identical game under a different IP that is that exact game.
Wow, yeah, that's different too. So yeah, that would suck.
Yeah. Too bad they were being sued by Disney. So.
Oh, well, that's
or sorry, yeah. Well, just look up Lorcana lawsuit.
That's a bad one to get sued by. That's for sure.
Yep.
What? All right. So how do you go about? Well, I imagine it'd be like any other way that you go about. Like if I wanted to write for an IP that already existed, there's channels you have to go through. So I would imagine it's the same way with a game. Speaking of Disney, like if you wanted to make a Nightmare Before Christmas board game, like could you just make it?
Absolutely. Like I could make a game with a licensed IP. I would not be able to publish it without getting the proper publishing rights for that. And more than likely, Disney would have very strict agreements with certain publishers,
right?
To be able to release those rights to them. There's very likely some exclusivity rights.
Sure.
Who did Villainous?
Villainous is right there on the second shelf from your left.
I think that's published by Disney. No, Ravensburger.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, Ravensburger.
They have a ton of IP.
Yes, that's what they're known for, is because of like all their connections with all their puzzles and everything. Like they already have these connections with all these huge companies.
Well, good on them for taking advantage of that. I actually dig their Jaws game, like that Jaws game they did. They did a good job of so far all of theirs that I've played where it's an existing IP, like a movie that I'm familiar with. They do a good job of incorporating that, making the feel of that movie feel like the game, which has not always been the case in games I've played.
That's really interesting. Most often, the vast majority of times that big publishers like Ravensburger pick up a new game design, they will change the theme.
Yeah.
So typically like Hasbro, Ravensburger.
Hasbro definitely I've had, where it doesn't feel like it. it's its own thing. Well, the only reason I say Jaws particularly does is because so it's got the thing where the board's up one way, and it's I don't have you played it?
No.
So you have one side of the board, and it's Amity Island and the beach, and you're Brody, Hooper, or Quint, and it's co-op if you're everybody but the person playing the shark. And so the shark is trying to gobble up as many swimmers as they can, while Quint is out on his boat, Hooper's out on his boat, and Brody's running around the island, and everybody's trying to save everybody they can. But the shark has like certain ways that it can navigate the seas around and just gobble up. So, and I mean, you get a bonus point if you get Mike Brody, because he's out there. Alex Kintner is out there. You don't get a bonus point for him, but like, so anyway, you gobble up as many sharks as you can, and then once that phase is done, you flip the board over, and it's the orca, and the shark is dismantling the orca while the Hooper, Quint, and Brody are trying to like, however well they did in the first half, they get more equipment, and however much better the shark does in the first half phase, the shark can do different attacks. And so it's the orca sinking, essentially. So it's beach on the one half, orca sinking on the back half.
That's interesting. That so that honestly, like at least with your elevator pitch, sounds like something that could have been designed as anything, and they're like slap some Jaws on it.
Maybe so, yeah. I mean,
because it sounds like something that it could have been any theme. Like, it could have been any kind of Predator or anything like that.
Right.
But maybe they could have started with the Jaws theme. You never know.
Yeah.
But it does remind me, like, there was a while there that I was... So, So, when I created Siege Command, and that was the only thing I'd done in Kinderlands, I was trying to think of other ways to expand on the world. And because like a 2-player head-to-head strategy game that takes 25 to 45 minutes is not the best place to explore a world.
Okay,
it's not great for storytelling.
Not a lot of lore dump going on there.
No.
Right.
So I was trying to think of other games and other ways I could expand on that. And at that time, I wasn't even exploring the idea of comics or role-playing games or anything, because those weren't options to me.
Yeah.
And then, so I was one of the ideas I had was like to potentially do like a separate standalone game, and like depending on the outcome of a game of Siege Command, it determines the setup of the other game, or like a separate game that you play like on the side, like in between turns, that influences one another. So like that actually sounds kind of similar. Like it sounds like the Jaws game is kind of like a very condensed legacy format game.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. See, what's fun is I used to do stuff like this as a kid and not even realize what I was doing. I used to combine my games into one large epic, and depending on where you won this one, you'd be set up on this one. And so yeah, I've always loved board games. I've just never done the leap to building. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's why I was so excited to sit down with you, because I find all of this fascinating. Hopefully everybody watching does, but I definitely do. Like, I could talk, and we will talk for much longer than this episode is going to be between the various times we hang out.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously Siege Command is the answer to this question, but beyond Siege Command, what is a game you wish more people were talking about and playing than you see being done? Like something you're digging that's...
Abyss is a big one. That is one of my top 3. Specifically with both of the expansions, one of which was only ever published in the UK or in Europe. So I actually had to order a copy of that overseas for more than the base game was. Wow. And that one actually, like, because it was a great game to begin with, and this just like replaces one significant mechanic of the game with an even better one. But yeah, that's the one that I really think people should really be talking about more and playing more. What else we got here? Yeah, that's kind of really the only one that's like always at the top of my mind.
what's a game that's you've probably played? Well, I imagine this is Siege Command too, but what's a game you probably played more than any other? Like you played it more times than any other.
Oh, it's definitely going to be something on this shelf. Probably Res Arcana.
That one I've actually not heard of.
Nice. I just did like the tablecloth pull. Pull this out, and a bunch of other games fell. Yeah, it's a really unique engine building game where you have like a deck of 8 cards and that's it. And you draw 3 cards, and then each turn you draw another card. And during your turn, you can play how many cards you can afford. You just do things that like give you more resources, and you're kind of like drafting different special abilities, and it's a really good game, and all the mechanics really complement one another in a way that like creates a constantly engaging game that has just the right amount, just the bare minimum amount of player interactivity.
Sounds dope. Is there anything? So, as a designer, like I'm going to Gen Con. You're immersed in this world quite a bit. What compels you to these days try a new game? Is it word of mouth? Is it the person that made it, or you're familiar with that work already, or what are the factors? Because I still try games blind, but I don't have the insight you have.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm hanging out with somebody and they've got a game and they want to play it and I've never played it, great. I'm always down. I'm always down to learn a new game. But other times it's games that have come up in the media that I haven't played yet or anything. It's on like the hotness list on Board Game Geek that I haven't played, though in the last several years those games are always very heavyweight, long games.
Right.
Or games that like I've done a demo at Gen Con, played a demo of a game or something and just really want to check it out. Like Spirit Island, I did a quick demo of that one, and it's kind of a pricey game and a little bit fiddly, but fortunately Target has like a condensed version of the game that's much more affordable, and it's a 3-player game. The only game I've ever seen is 2 to 3 players.
Huh. Yeah, see, I'm glad to see this resurgence of solitaire games, because I do not have a wife that will play, or significant other that will play games. And all of my friends that will play games, it's more of a time situation of like me finding time to go to them than to me, vice versa, And so anything I buy these days, it's got to be not just a solitaire option, but solitaire had to have been in mind to play it, because I've played some that, yeah, you can solitaire it, but it's basically they've taken it out at the knees a little bit just so you can, or you're playing 6 characters to make it fit. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of games start to do introduce I imagine it was in an attempt to make a solo variant. It ended up being a cooperative variant.
Okay.
Which is great because
Sure.
you can do co-op with somebody or as just a solo. Like Moonrakers has that. It's a sci-fi deck building, ship building game. Not as good as the hype led it to be, but they have a really cool like app-driven co-op variant that's good for solo. Cosmoctopus just came out. Lucky Duck Games, very excellent, very fun game with a really cool co-op mode that's also soloable. And then Apex Theropod, published by Outland Entertainment, who I work with. Massive deck building dinosaur game it's the only game that I have actually played the solo game of, and I played it 3 times in a row.
Wow.
Like I just had a whole day, and instead of like watching a movie or playing video games or going outside, things that I would normally do. I couldn't stop playing it. It was,
Right.
it was really, really good.
Wow. All right. Well, and that's got a ton of expansions, doesn't it? Apex Predator?
Say again?
Doesn't Apex have? Is there a bunch of expansions, or is it just? Am I crazy?
Yeah, it does. Currently, technically none of it's in print anymore.
Okay.
But the one that's more likely to be found, and like the one that's being sold online, is the collected edition.
Okay.
So it's got all of the expansions. It's got over 1,100 cards.
Wow.
It's a very big, very heavy box. Very awesome box.
All right. So as far as what you've got coming next, besides Siege Command's expansions, what, if anything, can you tease about that?
So yeah, there's the 2 expansions. There's only going to be 2 more comics. Explore the world more. I would like to start. When time allows, I'd like to start working on a short story anthology based on that world, and invite some other authors to contribute to that as well. There's a role-playing system that I'm working on. It's a DM-less collaborative storytelling system that I want to kind of debut with the World of Kinterlands. Kind of like comes with like a setting book and then like chapter book, which like each chapter is just kind of like a module that you play through.
Okay.
It's a mixture between collaborative storytelling and choose your own adventure. Very simple, very easy, zero prep kind of thing. Kinterlands Dice. I've got another game that I'm thinking of publishing through Outland Entertainment because we already have a good dinosaur property. It's a 2-player hidden movement, very lightweight, like 5 to 15 minute game with 18 cards. And various other designs that are just kind of in flux, and just a list of like 1-line game design ideas that are that's my phone.
That's a busy time. All right, well,
Yeah.
we're running out of time. Speaking of, where can everybody find you?
So RyanMakesBoardGames.com. That'll get you my personal link tree, and that'll also link to all my other stuff, which you can also find at Kinterlands.com. Or Siege-Command.com is the homepage for Siege Command, where you can find all the information, all the videos, and links to every bit and bob that is for sale for the game.
Sweet. And I've demoed that. I have demoed Siege Command, and it is dope. So people should check it out.
$25. It's a hell of a game for that price.
That's right. All right. Well, hey man, thanks for having a drink with me.
Yeah. Cheers.
Until next time.